Hey everybody, welcome back. I never did an overview video for someone who's never played War Thunder before, so I wanted to do a quick video on that so that if you're someone who's watched videos or stumbled across videos, you kind of get an idea of what the game is about. So, basically, War Thunder is a mil sim type game, so it's a simulator with military vehicles. The reason why I say vehicles is this game originally started out as a solely an air combat game, and as the game developed, has now branched out into air, ground, and naval. So you can do land, sea, or air. And there are some game modes where they combined air into ground or into naval. And I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to solely focus on air because that's typically the only mode that I play. And there's, as you can see here, we have arcade, realistic, and simulator. And if you're looking at levels of realism, simulator will probably be the most realistic. You have to control almost everything. Take it, if you've ever seen Digital Combat Simulator DCS, it would be sort of like that, where you need to have a full control scheme mapped out to control your engine, throttle, all of those different things, flaps, trim, everything. So the most easiest way to jump into this game is going to be Air Arcade. This is the mode that I typically play. It's more enjoyable for me. Some people prefer Air Realistic. The difference between Air Realistic and Air Arcade would be that in Air Arcade, you jump out into the game, you're already in the air, you don't have to take off from an airfield, you have unlimited reloads, so when you use up all your ammunition, you have to wait for a cooldown for your ammo to replenish mid-air. In Air Realistic, whatever you have, once you deplete it, you have to go back to base and refuel and rearm. For fuel, you still have to go back to base to refuel, and damage models are somewhat similar for Air Arcade and Air Realistic. You don't have a health meter, you have basically modules that can get damaged, and based upon that damage, you either can limp your aircraft back home to repair, or you will lose control and end up dying and crashing. So that's a quick overview of the types of modes of the game. So here, for example, you can see a bunch of nations, and they've expanded these nations out. When the game first started out, there was just the basic nations. Since it originally was a World War II game, you had just the main countries back then. Now they've sort of added additional nations, and they probably will add more in the future. So if we look at the different nations, each nation has, or each country has its own tech tree of aircraft. On the right hand side, these are aircraft you can purchase, and I'll get to that in a second. And this is the main researchable vehicles tree. So as you start out with the low level rank 1, you work your way all the way down until you get to the end game here. These are all going to be your top tier, the highest ranking. And you can see here there's a number next to them. This is the battle rating, and if you look at these are battle rating 1 all the way up to battle rating 12, and as the technology creeps forward, we'll go past to battle rating 12. So if we look at some of these other tabs here, this is strictly aviation, just to show you. There are ground vehicles here for tanks, helicopters, obviously aviation, and then you have blue water and coastal fleet, and these are basically I guess bigger ships and smaller ships depending on, so you have the smaller boats, and then you have the larger battleships. I haven't really dabbled in any of the naval. I tried it a little bit when there was a beta, and I've tried a little bit of ground, but we're going to focus only on aviation. So like I was saying, you have different types of currency in the game. This is a free-to-play game, so you can work your way through this tree completely free. However, it will take a very long time now that they've gotten all the way to rank with battle rating 12. I mean, originally I think the highest they got to were some of the early jets back then, so you still had a reasonable way to get there for free, but now you probably need to consider spending a little bit of cash if you wanted to make it less painful. And the reason why I mentioned that is you have two different currency types here. You have Silver Lions, the main currency, like it says, and then you have Golden Eagles, and you can use these Golden Eagles as premium currency to purchase different things. You can use them to unlock things on your plane, which I would highly advise against, as you can get those unlocked just by playing the game. Really, you should save these for unlocking a crew. So here we have multiple crew slots, and I think you get the first 5 or something, or yeah, I think the first 5, or you can use Silver Lions to buy. And then after that, you have to start spending premium currency. So you could have a ton of crew slots if you so chose. And what that means is in Air Arcade, if you have an airplane for each crew, that's how many spawns you get. So I can spawn every single one of these airplanes at least once, if not more, if I have a backup plane. You have the ability to actually activate backups for specific crew slots, so you can fly each twice in a possible game scenario. While I have these modification tree open for this aircraft here, you can see as you play the game, you unlock different modifications that give you enhancements to the plane, and they pretty much are standard across all of the aircraft. Obviously, some are unique to the specific plane, but for the most part, a lot of these are going to be pretty much the same across the board. And they'll impact the speed or handling or climb rate. Some are related to weaponry. So, and then you also have different ammunition belts that you can set up in the guns and cannons. So they obviously, being a free-to-play game, they have to add a ton of different areas that you have to put time into to keep playing the game. And overall, casually in Air Arcade with premium time, it's enjoyable enough. You can move fast enough on the lower tree. If you're trying to get to the end game, it's going to take you some more time for sure. And that's where we're talking about the premium packs here on the right hand side. These special packs, these airplanes will give you, if you look at the research efficiency down at the bottom there, it's giving you multipliers to give you a lot more experience, to basically get way more experience, and you'll unlock things a lot faster. So if you were to play this premium aircraft, for example, in the top tier games, you will probably get through a lot of these earlier lower ranking planes pretty effectively until you start getting down here where it's going to take more time. But that's the trade-off. And obviously jumping into the end game, if you've never played the game, it's going to be a bit challenging, because the people that are usually playing at top tier, there's a lot of players that have a ton of experience, and so you're kind of jumping in against players with a lot more battles under their belt. But that doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself, especially in Air Arcade. Also, the other point regarding the crew is the skills. So again, another area of grinding is the crew slot. Each crew has a bunch of different tabs for their abilities. Obviously one for the pilot, and then some, depending on if it's a bomber, you have secondary gunners or logistical services for reload speed, maintenance, stuff like that, and then qualifications. So once you've played the game for a while, and this goes all the way up, I believe the maxed out crew level is 75. So I've maxed out all of these crews here, as you can see, because I've played pretty much the US and the Russian tree most of the way through on this game. So when you have them maxed out, they basically can get, I'll show an example, you'll get them experted, and then once they're fully experted, they get aced, and that gives them an additional extra bonus points for abilities here. So when you have a crew that's fully leveled out, they have a slight advantage over a crew that doesn't have that. So they have a little bit better ability for G forces and getting shot, or stamina from blacking out, things like that. So things to consider as well. But for starting out in the game and just getting a feel for it, you don't have to worry about that mechanic as much. You basically need to get familiar with the controls and jumping into games. And so it'll show you kind of what your battle rating is here, depending on what lineup of aircraft you're taking. You typically want to line them up similar, so as you unlock planes, you want to keep them similar rating, so that you're not jumping in with like one you know, jet with the rest piston aircraft, because it's going to put you in games with majority jets, and you're going to try to fight against a jet with a prop. It's not going to be a fun time. So that kind of covers the overview of the, as far as what the game is about. If you've seen some of my other videos, there's a couple of different game modes or map types, and you basically have a distribution of maps where you have to capture an airfield, which means you have to land on it long enough or roll on it long enough for it to capture, kind of like a capture the flag, and it bleeds the enemy team's tickets out, which this mechanic is kind of similar to capture the flag in other games. And then you have objective type ground strike or frontline missions where you have to destroy targets on the ground, and the team that ends up wiping out the other team's ground targets first will end up bleeding out the enemy's tickets faster. So you bomb a base out, some of the small mini bases, or you take out soft targets on the ground, tanks and anti-air and artillery and pillboxes will end up bleeding the enemy's points. And all of this is happening while you are also fighting other aircraft in the air, so other players in the air. So let's jump into a game really quick, just to kind of show a quick snippet of some of the lower tier gameplay. I have some videos as well on the progression through some of these lower tiers, so you can check that out as well. But really quick, for the sake of this video, I wanted to show some of these things in combination in a game rather than just looking at the UI. So here we spawn into a game, and as you can see here, this is a ground strike. So we have to hit all of these flashing red targets on the ground, and as we kill them, we end up getting more points. So you can see here, I have my planes lined up. I've unlocked some things for these. So I'm going to choose an airplane to fly in. You can choose your fuel load, and you choose your location. I'm going to spawn where all the other fighters spawn. I don't want to take off on the airfield because it'll take forever to take off, climb up to altitude, and finally get into the fight, which is one of the advantages of arcade battles, because you're already in the air and you're already, you know, making your way towards the enemy. So here we have 4 mini bases here, and the objective is to bomb those out, as well as bomb out or kill these flashing targets on the ground down there. All the while you're getting close to the enemy, so you know, as you get close, the enemy is going to try to defend and try to kill you so that you can't take those targets out. Quick overview on the controls. With Air Arcade, you're typically going to fly with your mouse and your keyboard. So if you've ever played any first-person shooter game you've used a mouse and keyboard for, your mouse is going to kind of control where you point the nose of the aircraft, and your main control surfaces are going to be your WASD keys. So like W for, you know, increasing your throttle or maxing your throttle out, and then your A and your D are to roll, and you can pitch up, pitch down. So here I'm going to try to come in behind this P-61 here. We were able to burst fire and take him out. And if you can see how I can move my camera around, there is a free look button that lets you free look. So you can look behind you, you can look around you, and the reason why I do that is because I don't know if there's an enemy flying in behind me. So I'm typically looking all around me, or if I'm flying evasively, I look behind me to see where the enemy is behind me as well. Okay, that enemy's dead. So we're going to go down here and hit some targets so I don't waste a ton of time, you know. There's some AI targets here, which are just bots. And they do have tail gunners, so you can get shot by them. In fact, I'm a little damaged by one right now, and there's an enemy right here that's... Okay, our teammate got him. Okay, now that we're hopefully clear now, we're going to go ahead and dive in on some of this ground stuff. And I'm taking an approach from this side so I can just fly in a straight line and hit as many things as I can. And you can see here, since I got damaged, my radiator is now leaking, which means I'm going to start losing engine power later as the water starts to overheat. So as I move through, I'm just hitting ground targets here. And I missed. I need to get a little more altitude so I can angle down onto the target. And as you can see here, the enemy team has already bled out a ton of our points, which means we have to make up a lot of points here in objectives. And I see an enemy coming in here, so I need to be evasive here. So I'm using my rudder here to get some rotation with the tail and try to line up my guns. And we're flying defensively, and I ran out of ammo, so now I gotta wait for my belts to reload. And that's what I was talking about with the auto reload. 3 seconds. Okay, here comes another couple of enemies now. So we'll be a little defensive here and let our team come in. I'm losing. My radiator at this point is empty now. So I have to try to control my throttle and not overheat entirely. Can try to help our teammate over here. And you can see this Ju-87 got a couple of hits on me. Okay, that aircraft is done. And we ended up losing from points. However, we were at least able to show, what a game looks like. So if we had maybe spent more time with points, or our other teammates had helped with hitting ground units, we may have been able to even the score and possibly win. So you get awarded based on killing air targets and ground targets. Obviously here, if you look at the amount of research at the lower tiers, you don't earn a ton of in-game currency, right? And same thing with research points. So as you progress through the trees, you earn more. If you put in more work in the game, you earn more. So with premium time, it gives you an additional bonus. So I'll end the recording here. I hope it gives you an idea for what the game is like and what it's about. There's different game modes, like I said, and overall it's a really interesting experience because you learn strengths and weaknesses of aircraft so that you can then develop your play style and skills to take advantage of those strengths and weaknesses when you're in a dogfight with somebody. Until next time, thanks for watching.